Howdy, folks. It's Meandering Mike in the Man Cave of Madness. This is a video dedicated to Alan Emrich. It's a remembrance and a look at the legacy of what Alan did for the game industry in the broad sense. This is not biographical. It's not an attempt at biography. I've included a little bits and tidbits here. Some of it's my personal experiences. Most of it's direct gaming contributions that he's made. That X-Men stuff in the background, that has nothing to do with it. That's just the backdrop. So I'm going to try to make this mostly chronological. It's not necessarily going to be exact. I might meander around a little bit. I will be sharing some of my personal experiences with Alan, but the gist of this is to remember some things about Alan and what he has done for the gaming world, his many sort of game careers that he has, and the legacy that he's left us with. So I'm going to start way back in 1977. And I don't have a visual for this, but Alan was active in gaming conventions. He co-founded, way back in 1977, OrcCon in Los Angeles, and later went on to also be involved with the creation of Gateway and GameX cons, which were also in the LA area. Now, sort of a spin forward, Alan has been involved with gaming conventions throughout his careers, and he's been known as the dude that runs the game auctions. He's famous for the verve and panache that he adds to doing the auctioneering. Now, I have never attended a con that Alan's been at, but a number of people speak about these experiences. So you can find out there on social media and stuff, people sharing stories about Alan and his game auctioneering. So winding back to his early years. So after those convention creating days, and playing in them, he also got involved on the game manufacturer side. He was the first vice president of GAMA, the Game Manufacturers Association. He created a company called Diverse Talents that did importing and exporting of games. In the 1980s, he started getting into writing and publishing editor of game magazines. So he was involved with Fire and Movement, where he was the publisher and editor and writer of some articles, VIP Gaming, Battle Plan. Now here I have some example. I have a bunch of Fire and Movement, but I don't how many copies are with me, but here's some example Battle Plan. These are from the late 80s, 87, 88, and he was like a editor, and would usually contribute maybe one or two articles per issue, or maybe a part of a game variant or something with extra scenarios or rules or things like that. All right. So that was through a large portion of the 80s. He was involved with a number of those titles. In the 90s, he started getting more involved with general gaming journalism. He became part of the computer gaming world. He was like the first strategy editor, and he would write articles. So he became highly involved in computer games, which really took off in the early 90s. Now, so besides doing magazine work, which we'll talk about, I'm going to start with his books. So now, the first book that he wrote, I believe, is his Prima Guide on the game Global Conquest. I do not have that one. That's hard to find. It wasn't a super popular title, difficult to locate out there. But after that one, he just kept banging them out. And this is just a small selection. There's probably a dozen more that he co-authored various amounts with. But these, what I consider the classics.
According to Wikipedia.
Sorry about that. My smart device, she who must not be named, somehow misinterpreted that I was talking to her. So these are what I consider like the height of early 90s gaming. I played all of these to great obsessive addicted extents. And so, I think these are chronologically, or this down, I think this was like 92, 93, 94, 95. Now, a lot of times these game guides start to get written before a game is released. They're starting to create them based on beta level content, alpha and on into beta level content. And that was the case with a number of these, that, some of this stuff in here changed somewhat over time. Now, I'm going to segue in the middle of this because this one here is famous for. But I met Alan online on CompuServe. I've talked about this a little bit before. I was an assistant sysop of the game dev forum on CompuServe, and Alan was a regular participant there, getting involved in various game discussions, and I ended up playing Panzer General with him, via exchange of files. This was the, sort of play by email system where you would email a file back and forth, and, similar to today, how people can exchange log files on Vassal. So I played, a few different scenarios with Alan, and it was at this point when I realized he was also writing a book, and I hadn't realized that he had already written these other books. So when I first met him, he was a published author, way above and beyond, what. So he often didn't talk about what he'd done, and so if you knew, Alan was a big thing way back then. But I just sort of learned over time that, wow, he's done a lot, right? Now, a lot of people know Alan from certain aspects of Master of Orion. I'm going to pull this one over here. A classic computer strategy space game known often as Mu, Master of Orion. And from this game, the lore is that Alan coined the term 4X to refer to these games. And that is true, but it's a little more complicated than that. People also say that Alan was the co-designer of Master Orion. He was not. He was not the co-designer. He has an official co-design credit on Master of Orion 3. And he was involved definitely with Master Orion 1 and to some extent Master Orion 2, I believe. But I'm going to explain what is the real nature of the relationship with Alan Emrich and Masters of Orion. So let me get to that. So we're going to talk a little bit about this book and this article that was in Computer Gaming World magazine. So I have one copy here of, this is June 1993, episode 107. This article, which I do not have, was in issue 110. So I printed this from an online archive. So to roll back a little bit, Alan, being part of the journalistic world of computer games and his role at Computer Gaming World, gave him exposure and access a lot of times to early release copies of certain games. And this does not lead directly back to Master of Orion earlier. It leads to a game called Star Lords. The development team that was working on Master of Orion was working on Star Lords, and Alan got a chance to see it, and he gave them feedback. He gave them advice, and they took it. They did substantial changes to Star Lords and turned it into Master of Orion. So, in a sense, Alan is a design inspiration for what became Master of Orion. He was not one of the designers, so you'll see that in some places where people say, co-designer of Master of Orion. He was not. He was an official co-designer on Master of Orion 3. He was heavily involved in the guidance, the spiritual guidance and direction of Master of Orion, but he was not officially a designer on Master of Orion. It's got, special thanks, special design contribution, whatever I don't remember the exact wording, in the game manual. It's been a long time since I've actually had a game manual for that. But so he wrote this strategy guide during when Masters of Orion actually got its name, and this article here, and this is where the term 4X comes into play. Now, it started out, if you see here, the contrast is not real good. Microprose's strategic space opera is rated XXXX. Okay, exclamation point. Now, that's, sort of punning on XXX, triple X, sexually explicit content, which, of course, there's none of that in here. This video has nothing to do with that. But that's how sometimes people draw you in. And he says, just like, maybe you see a Hallmark card that says sex on it, and you open it to see it's really about something else. So now that you've got your attention. And so he says, okay, Master of Orion, lovingly known as Moo, and what is quadruple X? So we had XXXX, he now calls it quadruple X. He talks about, this is the important part, the terms explore, expand, exploit, and exterminate. Those four concepts together are what we think of as a strategic space conquest game. Explore and expand and exploit and exterminate. Okay? He does not call it just the 4X yet. He goes on through and he talks a little bit about the game, and he talks about some of the races. And this was before they changed. They had the 10 races, but 2 of them got changed. There was one called the Felpers. Those became the Mershon, the cat-like rates. They had one called the Shadowmorphs. That became the Darlocks. Those are the spying and stealing tech guys. Everyone else had the same name, Bulrathis and Alkaris and Cylons and all that stuff, Sacra, blah, blah, etc. And eventually here on the second page of the article, 4X, 4-X. So he never in this article refers to just 4X the way we're used to seeing it, a 4 and an X. But he did talk about XXXX, quadruple X, 4-X, and even here he mentioned 4X's, spelling out the word 4. So he did everything but come up with just the term 4X, the two together, but it's the concepts are important. So yes, he is the father of the 4X concept of games. And, which some people don't realize, he added a fifth one here at the end. It says, I suspect you will find it placed near the top of the genre as players discover a rare fifth X in its design exquisite. So those games that are the best of the breed in the 4X genre will have a fifth X. They will be exquisite. All right. So that was a long Meandering Mike ramble there about Masters of Orion. Alan's involvement with that. He's not the designer. He was spiritual design guidance, a heavy contributor to the design of the game, but not a code designer. All right. So he kept going. Masters of Orion, Panzer General. He got involved in so many different games. More, was that Lords of Shadow or Lords? I can't remember. There's a whole bunch of games. He just keeps going, and he has like I said, at least a dozen more books that he's involved with. Now, this is coming on the era because I met Alan online. I played with him. I discussed space games and strategy games and stuff. And I didn't realize it at first, but we both became involved with the project. So as you can see back here, he was involved with Empire Deluxe, the second edition. And this was White Wolf Productions, not the White Wolf of the vampire stuff, but the White Wolf computer game productions. They did the original Empire Deluxe, and Empire 2, The Art of War. And it turns out that I did not realize, but both Alan and I were alpha testers on the game. I didn't find that until, partway through it. You can see here, additional testing. There's 4 names. There's me and there's Alan. So we had some discussion about this game and the issues and problems with it. I don't know to what other extent Alan was, how many different games, but I suspect he again, being part of his game journalism world and that he got invited to a lot of different, early access stuff and probably did other testing. But this was my extent of getting involved in that aspect, and Alan and I were alpha testers on that. So now let me go to the next phase. So later in the 1990s, and I'm not sure how long and how deep Alan continued to be involved in things like computer gaming world. I don't know his last involvement with that. But he became a professor at the Art Institute of California, Orange County. He taught, game design and production and project management. I don't know if he actually taught art. I mean, Alan was a graphic artist, and in what we're transitioning to here is his involvement in actually publishing, developing, and designing games and teaching others how to do it. And so while he was part of Art Institute of California, he eventually transitioned to co-founding the company Victory Point Games. And part of Victory Point Games was being a tool, a school for budding game designers and production techniques of people. So it was used by Alan to teach people, in a sense, how to design games, how to publish games, giving them a venue to do that. So I don't have with me the huge pile, the ton of all the Victory Point games that Alan was involved with as a publisher and as a developer. Now, of the games at Victory Point Games, Alan was easily involved as the developer and or graphic artist for the vast majority of the games that came out of Victory Point Games before they were bought up by Tabletop Tycoon. So starting in the 2000s and forward, I do not sure what the very first Victory Point game published was and what year that was. And I'm going to think circa about 2007, 2008, but I could be wrong. But what I want to focus on right now is the ones that he was actually the designer on. We can grab any Victory Point game at random, and you could bet money on it. The odds are he was the developer and or the graphic artist. Now, there was a few different series where there was other series developer, like Lance McMillan acted as a series developer on a few things. But like I said, vast majority, Alan was the development and graphic design person. Now, Napoleonic 20 system. It's these here, and this here, we'll get to this one in a minute. So Joseph Miranda did the first Napoleonic 20 game, which I believe was the Waterloo. And then after that, they started doing more. And they kept going. There's like 20 of them or something like that in total. The 20 meant like 20 pieces. Napoleonic game with roughly 20 pieces was the idea, but Iena was one of Alan's designs here. And Albion 20, this is a hypothetical. What if Napoleon actually invaded England? And so he created that one. This, he was a co-design, Lance Macmillan and Alan. This is the expansion kit. The original version for Napoleonic 20, there's a later Napoleonic 20, which Alan was not the designer on. So those were his designs. Now, 2012, GMT published a number of some of these are like reprints. So the Waterloo 20, that's Joseph Miranda's design. We can look at the back of the box here. And we're gonna zoom here at the credits there and zoom in to this. And we can see, there's Joseph Miranda for Waterloo 20. Smolensk and Borodina sort of tied together. Alan designed the Smolensk, and Borodina was my lance. And then Steve Carey did a Salamanca 20 in Spain. They never did. There was a hope that GMT would get around to like reissuing more of these, and it never happened. And floating around somewhere, there was a plan that maybe Decision Games would do that, and I don't know what the status of that is or not. If anyone knows, they can post a comment. But this one of this quad, Smolensk 20, was designed by Alan. All right. Now, got a couple more here. Let me zoom back out. All right, I need to be a little more out. There we go. All right, so this is a card game. Sherlock Holmes. I say Holmes. So here we go. Alan Emrich, game design and development and graphic design. So that's one of his sole designs. Now, this one here, classic Strike Force 1 from SPI, 1975. Redmond Simonson and Jim Dunnigan created Strike Force 1. This is the first game in Victor Point Games' Battle Lesson series. There was about, was it 9, 11 or 12 total in the series of Battle Lesson. And so Alan developed this remake, adding optional rules, and so this is almost worthy of a design co-credit, the amount of extra development working in. But definitely this expansion, the Strike Force 1 expansion kit, this is completely Alan's baby. He gets the sole design credit on that. You can see it's here. It's not in the normal box like this, but so Alan gets full design credit for that. So that is the look at Alan Emrich's contribution of his sole designs, whether it's an expansion, a case-solving card game, Napoleonic battles, including Smolensk and expansion rules, his involvement with being a tester, with writing guides, design inspiration on games, He was on Master of Orion 3, a definite co-designer on the game itself. His many, 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 many magazine articles, editing, publishing, again, Battle Plan, VIP gaming, computer gaming world, all that stuff, his involvement in creating conventions and being part of them. Let me tilt at this here. So I mentioned, my involvement with Alan started here in this era of the 90s, the early to mid 90s, and lost contact with him. Because I said, this was on CompuServe, and eventually I got off CompuServe, and eventually, the early internet was kind of kludgy and weird, and, getting some local internet service provider was, hit or miss how good they were or how expensive or reliable. But eventually that became a real thing, and CompuServe just sort of dwindled away mostly. And so I lost track of Alan. And it wasn't until many years later, about 2017, when I got back into gaming. I had completely gotten out of board gaming. So this all these years when these were being published in, like 2007 and 2008, 2009, 2012, I was not doing any board gaming, only computer gaming. I was completely out of it. It wasn't until 2017 that I got back into it. And, I'd been part of Facebook, since about 2007 or 8, 9, somewhere in there. I started expanding my connections to try to, find more game-related stuff. 2017, and I ended up finding Alan on Facebook again, and we reconnected. And so I was, aware of his involvement then, looking back about, Victory Point Games. I started collecting all those titles. I still didn't realize the extent until later, how much he was involved with the magazines and that stuff. So that was a much later experience for me, but got involved with Alan when Thunder in the East came out. I had a friend who I've known. I've mentioned him on the channel before. It's Gerald J. Johnson. And if any of you are familiar with the Facebook group Frank Chadwick's ETO, that knew that Thunder in the East was the first game, and they've been working on the rest of the modules for a number of years. Gerald got involved with the play testing of the new system. He was quite a Gerald's a dig in it and find problems kind of guy, and so even with the early release, the release, after the actual release of Thunder East, he was finding certain issues with the balance of the game, and had gotten in contact with Alan, and they were thinking about, okay, for the next edition things have to change, or do we have to change the living rules and how to clarify things, or maybe do some things differently. And they started changing some rules for the next version, and some like official changes now and things like that. And so because I've been in contact with Gerald, and Gerald's been in contact with Alan, Gerald's on the team. He's on their base camp for the Frank Chadwick's ETO, and he's been doing the various play tests, and is highly involved in that Facebook group. You'll see many posts, probably at least half of the original posts in that group are initiated by Gerald, by Jay, and so I would often hear from him, besides that my connection in that group there, and commenting and asking questions, but I would often talk with Gerald on the back channels and find out stuff and keep in touch on the developments of the changes to Thunder in the East and the whole Frank Chadwick project. And so unfortunately right now that's, somewhat in limbo with Alan gone. And, well, what's next? What does Frank want to do? They currently do not have an official developer for the game. So it's a question of, what does Frank want to do? Does he want to try to find and recruit one? At Frank's age, I don't think he wants to step in and take a more active role. So who knows what's going to happen there? But that was my late end experience with Alan. Only a little bit of exchanges of email and Facebook chat, but often hearing about Alan, through Jay, keeping up and knowing what's been going on. So I think we're going to call it quits there. If anyone has any information they'd like to add in the comments about things that Alan has done, things that he's involved that I haven't mentioned, are there other magazines besides Fire and Movement, VIP Gaming, Battle Plan, Computer Gaming World? Was he involved in other ones? If you know of any particular the books that he's been involved with that I haven't listed, I mean, I know there's, there's Master of Orion 2 and 3 and other stuff, but if there's bits or pieces of Alan's legacy out there that I'm not aware of, you can go ahead and post that. It'd be nice to know about those things. And again, like I said, Alan was developer on many games. He's got on Board Game Geek. He's listed as developer for a number of games where technically he wasn't the developer. I mean, he wasn't the designer. He was development work. But so some are technically not correct, and some are like, yeah, he's got a partial co-design credit for some of these. Like, for example, the Mike Nagel, was it Ancient Civilizations Deluxe, or not Caesar XL, but the other one that Mike Nagel. It was published by Victory Point Games, and Mike Nagel did it all. But Alan did one of the expansions. I think it's like expansion number 4, and he did that one. So there's these oddball little credits that Alan has in different places, and there's a number of games out there where they'll list a developer and they'll say with Alan Emrich, because they're giving him a little bump up in the credit. He wasn't an official designer, but sometimes his development work goes above and beyond and creates like expansions or things like that get incorporated in the games. And so he has those credits. So again, Meandering Mike, Man Cave of Madness, way longer than I intended. But of course, as usual, I like to ramble and meander and talk about all those fun things. So, what exposure have you had to Alan's games in terms of ones that he's actually designed? How many of you have played I Say, Holmes? Or, his particular ones that he's done on the Napoleonic 20. Fair number of you might have this game, so his Smolensk 20 here, which also came in a Ziploc. So that's available also in a Victory Point Games Ziploc, I believe. Let me close it up there. So I do want to say, as I usually say, take care of your games and they'll take care of you. But, also take care of your relationships, your interactions with people, stay in touch, be involved with people to the extent, that they may suddenly be gone. So just one of those things we have to remember about our mortality is that you don't always have time. I want to talk with someone about this or find out, what they're up to these days. And you may wait too long and may not be able to find out. So take care of your games and take care of the people in your life, and we'll all take care of each other. So, ciao, y'all.